Welcome to Behind the Glass Mixing Live Worship. My name is David Glenn, and I've been blessed to mix multiple multi-platinum records from artists like Redimidos, Dr. Toomey, Blanca, Jeremy Rosado, and many more. I'm pumped to bring you this exclusive behind-the-scenes course for free right here on YouTube. In this series, we're diving deep into mixing live worship from the raw tracks to a polished, powerful mix that translates well in churches, streaming platforms, and beyond. All of the videos from the course will be made available here on the channel, and then if you want to get your hands on the Multitracks to follow along, my exact mix template available for most modern DAWs, my custom drum samples, multiple more mix breakdowns like the one you're about to watch, and on and on. I'll post a link in the description where you can get instant access to all of that, as well as some free guides to help steer you in the right direction with your mixing journey. Lastly, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single video in this free series. With that, let's dive in and start mixing. All right, at the end of the last video, I didn't want to make you sit through the whole commit process, but I right-clicked on the files, did the commit like I told you, hide and made inactive the originals with auto-align the plugin on it if we ever need to go back. I don't think I ever have in the history of mixing. I've been at this for a very long time, and I've never had to revert back to an auto-align. But one is none, two is one, you get the point. So we have a backup if we need it. So now we have these drums that are committed, and then I also want to now loop in and pull in the crowd mics. And what we're going to do is we're going to select, so Option Shift on Mac, we're going to come over here and select Rhythmic. This is Elastic Audio, and this is the algorithm that we're going to use to edit the drums. Now, many of you may be like, whoa, you don't use Beat Detective. I don't. I came up in a time when Elastic Audio was introduced, and it was preached as the far superior method. It's what I learned. It's how I have always edited drums. I will start with rhythmic mode, and then I used to slam on Pro Tools real quick. I used to then edit the full kit on rhythmic mode. It's the most, we'll say, efficient for the computer to process. And then I would move to Xform. Xform has a higher quality algorithm. And so sometimes with rhythmic, you're going to get end of cymbals. If you hit, you got a psh, 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 da, 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 kick drum like ringing out or something, you may, or a tom fill right after ringing out those cymbals, you have to edit the toms, let's say. Well, you might get this artifacts in the cymbals, kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird warbly kind of sound. Well, to combat that, we would switch from rhythmic to Xform, and then it would be a higher quality algorithm, which would reduce, if not eliminate, a lot of the warbling sound. Well, with the latest couple of versions of Pro Tools, they introduced this algorithm called Elastic Pro. Man, it is amazing. Except when you go to render the processing, it throws everything out of time. And as of recording this, this is still the case. I just tested it on a project last week because it does sound so much better, but it's absolute garbage. You cannot use that. And with introducing Elastic Pro and that being broken, somehow Xform is broken. So maybe it's not for you or on your system, but me on Mac, what version am I on? I never go to the latest and greatest. I'm always at least a version behind. I'm in Ventura. So, and I just switched to Ventura recently. So that's maybe part of it. I have no idea. The version of Pro Tools, I'm on the latest and greatest. So it just goes to show that you got to be aware of things like that. And that's where the used to be the DigiDesign Duck, the DigiDesign User Conference, the forums through Avid now, and the Pro Tools forums. It's a great thing to at least check in and be, kind of in the know of what the bugs are and what people are experiencing. But that's one that I've personally had a really hard time with because rhythmic is fine. It's okay. But Beat Detective certainly beats the quality sound of rhythmic. I just personally have never used it. I've always used Elastic Audio. So that being said, we're moving on and we're going to show you how I edit drums. So all of these tracks are now including, remember, very important to include the crowd mics, especially when you have so much of the drum tone in the crowd mics. We're going to go ahead. We've got them all on rhythmic. We're going to come over Option Shift, and I'm going to actually, let's get away from using Option Shift. Let's create a group. You want to make sure that when you edit drums, that everything is, and see, my group didn't even, I'm about to tell you, you want to make sure everything is grouped, and so that anything you do, see, it's selecting everything, but it wasn't soloing everything. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to modify this group. I got to check my Pro Tools defaults. The global should be where volume. We're going to go mute. And then I don't need the Pro Tools. Record enable solos we'll throw on there. And I think that should just about do it. Everything else should follow. So now we click on one. It's going to solo all. It's going to mute all. We're good to go. So we're going to solo them. And we're going to come over. So now when we go to select from waveform to warp view, it's going to, if we zoom in, you'll see our warp markers. And everything is going to be selected. So the very first thing that I'm going to do, you can go in and there's a process online. You can see the official videos from Avid where they review the analysis markers and you go through. I've found that Pro Tools does a pretty good job of putting those analysis markers in place. It gets a little weird with cymbals. We have to remove some hits, but I typically just go to warp and we get to work. So let's see what we got at the beginning. Okay, so what I'll start with is placing a marker, and I'm going to zoom all the way in here, and I'm going to put one. Am I in slip mode? I'm in slip mode for now. I'm just going to throw one at the beginning, and then I'm going to find where do I want. You know what? A pretty important piece of this process. Remember, we had our client files at 77 beats per minute. We need to come in here, and we're going to go to the start of the session. We got to change that. I almost got going showing you. We would have created all kinds of a mess there. So now, the other thing to note is, are we in tempo with the click track? Is our click track aligned? So let's go find our click track. Let's zoom out here. And where is our click from the original? You know what? It may not be in these files, these particular files that I dragged in. So let me come over and make sure. Did I even take them? I don't think I did. So I'm skipping a step. I'm debating, do I start this video over or do I just keep running with it? So basically what you're going to want to make sure is that, so if we come out here, we're going to have to go grab them because I don't think. Oh, you know what? I may have already done it. So maybe we do a video down the line to show you how to align it to the session. But for now, you know, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and make it a double time click. So we're going to go from that to a half note. Let's come out here. Let's see, is it in time? It's in time there. It's in time. It's in time. Drums are not in time, but they are with the click as far as like they're close enough to the click that I can tell that our click is good. So we're going to just do a little bit of the drum editing here. We're not going to do the entire song. It would take forever, and I don't think anyone wants to sit through that. So we're going to give you the gist of how my process works, and then I'll be available. If you guys have any questions, we'll create like a private community so you can ask those, and if we need to expand on that, we can in like a live call or something. So here's what we're going to do. We had the beginning of the song.
Jesus Christ today. Come on, we come alive.
This is officially where the toms kick it off for us.
Jesus Christ today. Come on, we come.
Okay, so I'm going to put a marker before that point. And then we're going to kind of go out here. We're going to just do one section at a time.
Jesus Christ today. Come on, we come alive in Him. Oh, thank you, Lord. Yeah. Lord.
So we're just going to
Sing it out.
Okay, so we're going to go to about there. So that's the intro, the whole intro. And I'll tell you what, we're going to put a marker just before the pickup to the one of the verse. And so now this marker is kind of like a protective boundary I've put around the section we're going to work on. I've put one before it and I've put one after it. Now, if I take this whole section here and I slide it, you can see nothing happened to anything out here on the right. Let me show you one more time. If I grab this kick and I slide it all over the place and mess up this whole first section, it's not doing anything to anything further out right of this kind of boundary marker here. And so now I know I can do whatever I need in this section, and it's not going to mess with anything out there. If you get to work without that and you start sliding things, snapping them to the bar and all that kind of whatever, you ruin the whole rest of the song. You just created one massive headache for yourself. So I like to work within kind of each section at a time. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go here and I'm going to listen and really usually just solo up against the click. Anytime you're moving the drums like this, we're going to have to go and we're going to have to do the bass. I prefer to then overdub bass when I can instruct, bands, churches to go back and dub the bass after we've time corrected the drums, but that's often not possible. And so we're working with what we got. So then we'll go and we'll edit. I'll show you my bass editing process to get that locked in with a kick. But then anytime you've now corrected the drums and the bass, you got to go nudge guitar parts and keys parts and vocals, all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole process to editing and getting it premium, polished and sounding professional. But the better the musicians, the less you have to do this. But we're talking, generally speaking, your average church is going to be dealing with volunteers and not professional musicians. So you're going to have a little more editing to do on projects like that than, say, Bethel will. And even them, they're going to be doing a lot of this as well. So, right, here we go. Well, let's listen. Okay, there's some people will go in and they'll just select like the whole section. And they'll do this. So come in, select everything. On Pro Tools, it's Option 0 to launch the quantize menu. Or you can come up here to, it's been so long since I've done this. We go to Event, and then we go to Event Operations Quantize. So that'll pull up the same exact menu, but Option 0 on the numeric keypad gets it done. And then what I like to do, I like to edit drums pretty darn tight to the grid. There are times when I will leave room for the drummer's artistic expression or, gradually fading into the next section like a fill or something. Maybe it's a little loose sometimes, but I'm just using my ears and really just doing what sounds good, what feels good for the song. Most of the time, being a fan of pop music in the way that things are edited super tight, I tend to edit super tight. But experiment, be the judge for yourself for that. I'm going to leave it at about a 16th note here. And we're going to go to the strength. I like to pull back just a little bit, kind of, 95, 94, somewhere in there, so that it's not absolutely perfect. And then I'm going to exclude within 3 or 4%. If it's within that kind of 3 or 4%, it's going to leave it alone. So, and you know what? I may even go like 97% on this one. Just like lock him in. And so here's one way to do it. Select all the drums for that section that you're working on, hit apply, and bam. It put warp markers in, and then this is just one way. And then now you can go through and against the click track, and I like to crank the click. When I'm recording or editing, I crank the click. It's obnoxious, but I need it, and I'm really just trying to feel, are the drums tight? And so let's listen to what this did. Okay, and so now you can go through, and you can clearly hear that kick was out of place. We got warping in the cymbals over here, so that's obviously not ideal. But let's fix this. That kick right there should have been there. Let's go to grid mode while we're editing. So we're going to switch over to grid mode. That's up top here. I use slip for most things, but then grid when I'm officially editing the drums. Let's click and listen to that again. That just sounds terrible, so we're going to get rid of that first one. I'm going to increase the view. Floor tom hits here, so I'm going to take out the hits before that. You can hear these extra couple of hits is trying to align something in the cymbals. We don't want that. It's creating some warping. And then how close is that? It's close enough. So, and then right before the hit, it gets warbly again. But we need that. That kick comes pretty early. Usually, I'm okay with slightly late hits. I hate the feel of rushed drums. And so I'm always very particular to make sure that any kick, tom hits that are rushing, whoa, we got to slow it down. We're either going to be right on the grid or we're going to back off and be slightly late. Rushed never feels good. Rushed drums can create the feeling of anxiety. So if you're trying to create anxiety in your music or a particular part, by all means, you could use that to your advantage to create that emotion. But with worship, we almost never want to feel anxious in the art or expression of worship. So we're going to back that off and make sure that things are not rushed. See, we still got those artifacts, and so I'm going to take and we're going to put the grid a little tighter so we see these hits, and we're just going to bring in the ones that we need. And so you can see how this, just because you quantize it, it doesn't mean that you don't have work to do. And so now that we're listening through, you can tell that we can either go through and correct the things that we want to correct, or we can quantize it and then go take out the stuff that doesn't sound good. Either way, it's just two different ways to skin the cat. Another thing to keep in mind is the shells of the kit. The kick, snare, and toms are typically going to be more forward in a mix than the overheads or the cymbals. And so that warbling, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the different kick mics. Snare, let's pull the snare up 7 or 8 dB as well. Bottom will pull up a little bit. Let's go ahead and pull up the toms. And this is often one of the reasons why I do replace or pay my assistant more money when we got to replace toms. It's a pain in the butt. Especially, I mix a ton of gospel music. Whew, some of the best musicians in the world are in gospel, but the amount of toms and flamming and all that kind of stuff, man, it takes. And then your songs are, you're on the low end, you're a 6-minute song. On the high end, it's 17 minutes, 20-minute song. So it gets a little crazy, but we hate replacing toms, but if you have a lot of editing done to them, it just almost always makes more sense. So you get that clean sustain on the toms without the cymbal bleed in the warbling. But all right, so we're moving on. We got those up in the mix. Overheads are now a little lower. We could have just pulled the overheads down, but that's creating some distortion. So let's back those off, and then instead we'll come over here and take the crowd mics. I don't really need to hear the crowd mics right now, so I'm going to pull those back, and then the overheads we're going to pull back a little bit as well. And you can just hear, man, the trashy cymbals. Whoop, made a mistake there. I got out of my group and I made an edit. We want to make sure we stay grouped when we're editing drums. And so I'm just going to come in and I'm going to clean up any of the hits that are not on toms, kick, snare. I'm just going to take those off. And so this is an example of when I have, and I'm not saying this drummer was poor, but when I have a poor performance and I really have to do a lot of editing, that's a time when we're replacing everything and cymbals. We're replacing cymbals. So we're blending with either Superior Drummer or BFD, whatever, or just manually throwing and going through. I have a whole process for basically recreating the drums to avoid this kind of sound that we're getting from those overheads. So this is one way. We go through and we just kind of clean it up, and anything that's distraction or sounds off, we go through and we delete those markers, and the Pro Tools will snap them back to. So here we have a kick with a marker right after. Let's hear that. I don't need this one either. Okay, that's correcting the hi-hat and the overheads, but this hit after, we don't need it. Don't need these either. So we'll just come through and take those out. So this is one way. We go through and we listen to anything that's not good, artifacts. We get rid of the markers on the cymbals and correct any that we need to for different kick, snare, and toms are the main things that I'm listening for, that I want to make sure are in time. The other thing you want to look for, I think we had one. Let me back up, get rid of all these. Right there. You see this little orange-red kind of coloration going on here? That's almost always going to be bad. We don't want that. So we're going to delete that and look, do we need anything here? And we're going to get rid of that. I did that earlier. And so let me redo everything. Oh, I just undid a bunch of stuff that I did. But anyways, it's good to show you that the orange right there, it means something's been stretched a little bit too much. You might want to take a look at that, and almost always we're going to correct that and do what we got to do to get rid of the markers in order for that to not be crazy. And so this is one way. We get section at a time. We go through, we take out the stuff that sounds bad, the warping cymbals, but then also correct timing. You'll hear if there's a kick or a snare or a tom that is not in tempo against the click, and we'll fix it. Okay, moving on, we would then come out to this next section. We have a marker here that we set originally right there. So that's our kind of starting boundary point. So now we would come out here, and I'm not saying that first section is done. By no means I would go through and with a fine-tooth comb, but now we're going to come out further, and we're going to see where's the next section at. And you can just feel it goes click, kick, click, kick, click, kick. The kick drum is flaming on the click, and we don't want that. So we obviously have work to do here. Let's see what else. So let's say that this was the next section. I would come out here and place a marker. Now I've set my boundary. Nothing to the right is going to get messed up by anything we do in here. And then I'm going to make a selection within here, including that hit right there. And then now we would go back, quantize. We're going to use the same settings, and we hit apply. So you can see it just slid everything. Look at that. It just slightly falls back in time. Again, remember what I said about drums ahead of the beat, creating anxiety almost. This, you can see it's just barely sliding them back in time. And so we would listen, use your ears, check against the click. That's one way. Okay, so now let's come in here and let's select all of this. Remember, we set our marker at the very beginning there, so I can delete all this. Now we're back to the original. That was one way to do it. Here's the way that I typically will do it if I'm doing it myself. I don't know, actually, my assistant, he may even use Beat Detective for all I know, but this is my way. Let's come in here. Okay, so that's where it started. I'm going to put a marker, bam. So now I've got our boundary marker. Let's zoom out. Let's say that we were going to there, the pickup. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing. I've put my boundary markers, but now I'm going to go manually, and I'm going to look at the kick, I'm going to look at the snare, and I'm going to look at the toms, and I'm going to manually drag each of those painstakingly, one hit at a time, and put them all where they need to go. So if I come in here now, this is where it gets a little tricky. If I take this kick drum and I snap that to the grid, and then I come to this kick and I snap it to the grid, and I'm telling you, you can get out of hand with a poor drummer. It's moving everything left and right. See, it's just minute moves left and right. But what I find is that going to kind of like the main hits, the one of each bar, you can find that by just aligning the kick drum to the correct groove and then tighten up the snare a little bit, you can kind of find that. See, like this right here, that looks like it may not go there. It may go here. So let's listen to that section. So that kick was super early. We got to drag it and put it in the right place. And now the whole section. Okay, but now this is late. So we're just, it's a trade-off. But we got to go through and just kind of find the sweet spot for all of those. I know that kick probably goes there. That was actually a tom, so we'll come here and make sure the tom goes to the right. And then see, that was a little late, so we'll put that a little tighter. Okay, but boom, we want that not early. And then here we may go through and tighten some of these up. So you can see just by tightening the main shells of the kit, the kick, the snare, the toms, that we're not getting as much artifacts. So we're still tightening the sound of the drums, or the correction, the timing correction, but we're doing it a little bit better, I would say. is going to be, and this is just a starting point to get the, that actually might have been a tom. That's a tom, so we're going to put that tom on the one. Cool, and there was our boundary marker, so we're going to leave that alone. Yep, that was our boundary. So we just want to go through and make sure this whole section is right. So now I kind of went through and I snapped the kicks. That one we're going to slide there. We got toms. Cool. So now we're going to kind of go to this section. I've done the kick drum as my main kind of starting point here. Are there any snare drums? No. The snare drum does not come in until further out in the song. So now I just want to make sure that the kick and the tom. So we mostly did the kick. I would come in and I would mess with the toms and put them. These feel pretty good. I mean, see, I pulled that one back a little bit, and we're just going to tighten up each of these. And what do we got here? Boom, boom, boom. So that, the kick should hit there. Yep, and it does. And then the tom there. Cool. That pickup was nice. I didn't feel like I had to fix that. Okay, the kick and tom right here are flaming. So this is a good example. Usually it's the kick and the snare that I've got to worry about. When you get snare samples in, when you get the kick going, you get the high fidelity of the kick samples and the snare samples in at the same time, and you got tons of energy. I like to mix with the drums very forward in the mix to a fault. I'm often having to compress and pull them back. When those are both clear and loud, that flam is going to be obvious and uncomfortable, and we want to avoid distractions with worship, with the production. We don't want it to sound bad, and so this is a good example. I have the kick hitting and then the tom hitting. This is a case where I know I'm going to be using samples, so I'm going to be a little more aggressive with my edit. Here, yep, so we have another marker on that kick there, so I'm okay, but I would add a marker to this tom and then hold command and drag it. If you don't hold command and you're in grid mode, it's not going to work. It's going to go back. It's going to create that red thing. I can't go left. It won't let me go left. So what I do is I hold command. So there's that little plus sign, the addition sign on the tom right here. I'm going to click it and added a marker. I click and hold command, and now I can freely slide that when you're in grid mode. And I'm going to pull that back. I know that transient's going to be enough for the kick to trigger. And then now that kick and tom, usually a snare that I'm doing that for, but that kick and tom are now right on top of each other. Okay, here's before. Boom, boom. It's quick. It's subtle. You may not notice that. But again, when you get samples in with a nice clear definition on the top end for the click and the kick, you get maybe even tom samples, or with toms, we're almost always boosting a ton of top end to get the stick hitting the head to come through in the mix. When you get that happening in the mix, this flam is going to be a whole lot more obvious. And let me show you. Let me not just, we're going to get that soloed. Go to 6K or so and okay, and boost some more. Okay, it's another reason why we often replace toms is the amount of cymbal bleed that comes through, but I'll show you the tom trick in another video that can allow you to get the initial transient, have top end, but then the sustain merely be the rumble. I call it the tom trick. There's plugins that do it now for us, but it's still nice to know the manual way so you understand the engineering behind it. So let's say we got top end happening there. Why not? Let's go ahead and scoop some of this out of it, and let's boost some low end sustain in this. Without it. Yeah, we improved that drastically. Okay, so now let's go to the kick drum. And what do we have here? Okay, let's go ahead and we know we're going to need quite a bit more than that. If you're Sam Gibson mixing for the Belonging Co., you're going to have quite a bit of top end click in the kick. Almost sounds like he's got the CLA drums working for him there. Quite a bit of top end boost with the CLA plugin. I've used that before. It sounds great. Same thing. We're kind of scoop out here. I'm going to take out this stuff, and let's just use, wrong ones. We're going to right click, throw ourselves a shelf on there and just boost. Okay. Probably don't need this stuff. I mean, that's the the kick in mic, usually what we're going to use for top end, and it's just got so much bleed that I'm not getting kick click from it. So there's an example of where we would use a sample to augment the top end. Let's go ahead and put the kick out. You know, we may be able to get it from the kick out because it seemed to be isolated more. Let's see. Well, here I am adding bottom end to that when we've got it in the kick out mic. We'll turn that off. Got a cleaner bottom end from here probably anyways. It's already got sucked out. Okay, I'm not getting any kick click from that, but when we have a kick sample, we will certainly have a more defined top end or mid range as well in the kick drum. And so the two together, if we play just that floor tom and the two kick drum mics, here's with the tom slightly out. You got a flam happening. It's not the worst flam ever. I mean, if this was maybe a little bit out here, you can feel it more, right? That's more like a 64th note. Boom, boom, like you might have on an actual floor tom performance, or often flaming snare or toms on purpose. But the kick and the tom hitting off each other like that, when we get those samples in, I'm beating a dead horse here, saying it over and over, but we don't want that. And so I'm going to take this tom and I'm going to suck it in right on top of the kick versus, yeah, small potatoes here, but it certainly will make a difference once you get the samples in. So kind of took a minute on that. That is not a bad idea, actually, to go ahead and EQ your kick, your snare, your toms a little bit if you're editing, because like I said, when you hear the definition, the clarity from samples, blending samples or replacing them, that's going to shine a magnifying glass on timing issues. So not a bad little rabbit trail that we had there. I think that'll help. So anyways, now we went through in this section and we pulled in and we tightened up certain hits. Let's just kind of listen to this whole thing here, but only the drums with the crowd mics, not with the rest of the band. Cool. And so I don't know about you, but for me, I'm bobbing my head to the kick. I'm moving my arms. I'm trying to get my body to feel the rhythm of the drums. And then anything that kind of moves me out of rhythm, if I notice it, if it's a distraction, we're going to go and we're going to fix it. And so just a couple of key points there. But there's two ways. Hopefully that helps you with your drum editing. If we came across the kick snare, that's exactly the same situation as that tom there. I'm going to line up the snare to the kick drum and make sure that, especially 4 on the floor grooves, when you have kick and then kick snare together, kick snare together, kick snare together, those grooves, we call it 4 on the floor. You got to make sure that your kicks are all on the grid, but then your snare is right up on the kick on the grid as well. And so a couple of points there. Hopefully you dig that. Now, once again, would be once I get the whole song done, that would be where I would come in here and I would select rhythmic and I would go to X form. Again, I no longer do that because it's broken. Elastic Pro is better, but broken. Hopefully, whenever they come up with a fix for that and they fix that bug, maybe I even post an email or something. Hey, it's finally fixed, so you guys know. But at that point, we'll be rocking and rolling. But for now, rhythmic is king. If you don't already know Beat Detective and you have that going, you probably didn't even watch this video. So those of you that are new to drum editing, hopefully that gives you some pointers, some tips. As you can see, it would take quite a while. What do we got? A 6-minute song here. So if you want, we'll include the raw unedited if you want to practice this, but the ones that you'll be receiving, I believe, are the edited files. So you will not have to do that for your mix. You'll be able to jump straight into the mix and create your own version and be able to use that on your resume. So that being said, we're going to move on. Now that we got the drums going, we need to come over and we need to do the bass. I will see you in the next video for that.